thank you for joining. Hope you all had a really good weekend. So just in case for those that haven't met already, my name is Tushar. I'm the head of strategy here at Sustainable Certification, and we would like to welcome you to our webinar. Today we'll be hearing from Alex Ezrokovic, who has been involved in the ISO certification industry since 1987. At the very least, he has been, to give a bit of background, he's been involved with Standards Australia for over 20 years and has also been involved in the ISO committee. He also continues to be involved in the development of ISO Casco standards, and including 17021, 17065, 17011, as well as 17030. He's also been involved in the IAF MD committee, technical committee as well. So we're really lucky to have him today presenting to us. Today's webinar, as advertised, is really about understanding what the auditing best practices are and what clients should be aware of and what auditors will particularly focus on, especially in the context of the internal audit and management review process. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the land we meet on and go through a bit of housekeeping. In the spirit of reconciliation, Sustainable Certification acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respect to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people today. Just some housekeeping. Before we get started, our speaker slides and other resources, including the recording, will be shared with everyone who has attended and also after the event. So don't stress about that. If at all you have any questions during the webinar, please pop them into the chat, and Renee will obviously read them out to Alex, and Alex will do his best to obviously answer them as they come along. For you to have the really best experience of this webinar, please make sure you are muted unless you are asked to unmute for any particular questions of any sort. Just a bit, as I mentioned, a bit of an introduction, as I mentioned to Alex. Obviously, he's been involved in the certification industry for many years. We like to call him the godfather of the certification industry. He's been involved in the technical side of certification. He's been involved in the technical committee. He's been a general manager at SAI in 1987 for over at least 12, 13 years. And he's also the chairman of our industry board. So we're really lucky to have him. And we're really excited about what we can all learn today. I know I'll be taking some notes as well. Welcome to I'll now hand it over to Alex. Welcome to the stage, Alex.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. It's very strange that people between weekends decided to spend some time on listening something serious, because when I realized that on Tuesday is a Anzac Day and a lot of people decided not to go to work today, so they can have another extended long weekend. But I'm very happy that you decided to come and listen to me. The topic of this webinar, how to be ready for audit from certification body, and what type of questions the auditor may ask. The situation is that what I will be talking about today is regarding the auditor's practices, the third-party auditor practices. And I will give you the little bit of history of this work which we done for last 20 years. What was happening, and this is quite important, we wrote these documents especially for the third-party auditors. But third-party auditors are not working in isolation. They're actually working with you, the customers of these certification bodies. And it's very important, and I realize that it's very important that you will be prepared to what sort of questions you could be asked. I'm not talking about the questions from the standard, which is checklist type of questions, which, to be honest with you, I am one who hate checklists. And to be honest with you, I never use them because I believe that they're most useless part of the tools which are created by certification bodies and unfortunately accreditation bodies. Certification body developed the checklist to help the auditors to do their job. But in some cases, when I was running SII Global, I stopped using checklists because I found it's much more difficult for the auditors to use checklists. But unfortunately, in a lot of cases, accreditation bodies, the regulator for us, for the certification bodies, insisting to see that we address every word of the standard. I will try to, during this seminar, to talk about this and answer all your questions about these issues. Anyway, let's start to talk. And another thing, of course, you can ask questions if you want. You can interrupt me. And Renee kindly enough will tell me, Alex, shut up, there is a question. You can write your question, of course, in the chat, but it's quite difficult for me to do something and watch the chat. So if you can wait till the end of the presentation, because it will be three separate presentations today. But anyway, let's start now, and I will be very happy to answer all the questions. One of the important issues which happens some time ago, that in 2002, can you hear me all right? I can't.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, it's all right because I can't. The ISO advisory group, which was working together with IAF. I need to tell you what IAF is, International Accreditation Forum, which appears to be the top god for all certification and conformity assessment industry. It's unfortunately, it's their opinion about themselves that they're top people. I'm not necessarily agree with this, but they set up the rules. They identified that auditor competence and the competent use of these auditors are most critical issue that ensuring the credibility of 9001 certification. And together with ISO and IAF, which is International Accreditation Forum, the Auditing Practices Group was established in February 2003. And funny enough, it was established in Sydney, Australia, because we had an IF meeting here in Sydney. And I was elected or appointed, I will say, one of the co-conveners of this group. So from February 2003, which is now 20 years celebration of this thing, we have run this group. In 2016, end of 2016, I decided that I had enough of this, and I just resigned from this position, but I still continue to be member of this group, and it's quite important for me to participate to these activities. Who was the initial participation of this group? It was the experts appointed, nominated by IF, which includes conformity assessment bodies, accreditation bodies, and industry representatives. It was the members of ISO TC 176. ISO TC 176 is the body which is writing the standard 9001, 9000, and all the other standards in this 9000 group. And also the which includes work group on interpretation, subcommittee 1, subcommittee 2, subcommittee 3. Later, maybe we'll have time I explain what all this means. ISO CASCA. ISO CASCA is a committee for conformity assessment. It's one committee which is responsible for all standards relevant to conformity assessments. And I'm continuing to work there. I used to be one of the conveners of the groups, and now I am working on the standard for remote audit methods, which will be, hopefully we'll have it by the end of this year. And another people is from IETCA, which is international, used to be IETCA, now it's called International Personal Certification Association. These are the organizations which nominated the experts. When we start to, I just explain you who are these people already, so you see the slide in front of you. What was the aims of these groups? Sorry, which slide you can see, because something wrong with my computer is you see the aims of the group. What are the APG guidance documents? I think this is what we're talking about, yes? These documents concerns with effective value auditing of quality management system. Some additional graphics and illustrations provided. Not all subjects for a formal endorsement processed by ISO and IF, but produced by expert auditors and practitioners, drawn from ISO Technical Committee and IF. One of the things which was quite important for all of us to write this, as we call it, undertaking, that accreditation auditing practices group is constituted as an informal group of accreditation experts, auditors, and practitioners drawn from ISO Policy Committee, CASCA, ISO Technical Committee, and other organizations. It was established following the success of Auditing Practices Group and the following request for ISO Technical Committee. So we also have accreditation auditing practices group. So these are groups of which we're working to create these papers. The aim of the group was the development of examples of good auditing practices related to requirements of 9001 and guidance of 19011. As you know, 19011 is not a requirement standard. It is just the standard for which provides guidelines. So in practice, the auditors who are working for certification bodies are not necessarily have to follow 19011. The Bible for these auditors and for their audits is standard 17,021, part 1, part 2, part 3, and now it's around already 15 parts. So if you go to the different management system certifications, you will be able to read all these guidance documents and requirements documents, which are parts of 1721. 19011 is the guidelines which is applicable to all types of audits, first party, second and third party audits. Another aim, development of website where papers and examples of auditing practices against the requirements of 9001 are posted and available to the public without charge. This was a very important issue. We created the documents which are free for everybody to use. No one have to charge for them, but I know some countries have decided to sell it. I don't know why. For example, in China, they tried to sell me my own documents for some 120 yuans, which I said, sorry, but I don't want to buy it because actually I wrote them and I don't read and understand Chinese, but it was happening in China. Also, the information provided by group does not constitute endorsed benchmark or interpretation of the preferred way conformance to 9001. This is very important point. We are not going through consensus mechanism, which is long tool which is used by ISO and the IF. It's take quite a long time to get consensus and a lot of comments and something like this. We were working like editorial committee of technical uh, magazine. Few people who were working in this group were discussing the best practices, and we had these discussions. After a couple of weeks discussion within the group using emails and so on, we were able to publish the documents. So these papers have not been subjected to endorsement by International Organization for Standardization, Technical Committee and International Practice. The information contained within them is available for educational and communication purposes. The ISO 9001 Auditing Practices Group does not take responsibility for any errors, omissions, or other liabilities that may arise from the provision or subsequent use of such information. And they have all copyright, all rights reserved. This last bullet point, or previous bullet point regarding the liabilities, was the most difficult document produced by ISO. It took them few months to create these 5 lines because they don't want to take any liability. They want to ensure that the people would not sue them and all the other things. So for us, technical people, to write these documents was much easier than for the lawyers of ISO and IF to create these 5 lines undertaking. This is something which is quite important for all of us to know. Now, the auditing practices group was produced by, as I said to you, by ISO and IF. Because ISO 9001 group was very successful, okay, it was decided later to create auditing, accreditation auditing practices group. And also recently, a couple of years ago, ISO 14001 practices group was established on the basis of IAF and ISO TC 207, who are involved with environmental management systems. Also, due to, again, as success of our work was quite uh, evident, it was decided to create the working group for auditing practices group for occupational health and safety for 45,000 to 1. But unfortunately, so far I have not seen any work conducted by this committee. Maybe they again trying to create some sort of nice statement to ensure that no one takes them to court or something like this. I just will give you the information about what type of documents are available, which I'm not going to stop in the details, but I give you the indication what sort of documents currently are available. So ISO auditing, QMS auditing practices group are split in 3 groups. The first are general. What is adding value? Another document which is quite important for all of us, code of conduct and ethics. Cultural aspect of certification and or auditing. What are expected outcomes? Sometimes people don't understand what are expected outcomes of certification. Somebody will think that certification is something which is providing you 100% compliance of the product, which is not correct. And the paper was created on expected outcomes. Impartiality, what it means impartiality of the auditors, what you have to look at the auditors who are conducting the audits of management system. The role of technical experts. two-stage initial certification audit. What is the main benefits of two-stage audits? Some people believe that they don't need it. Incidentally, I'm giving you here the links for ISO for the website where you can find all these documents. For example, if you look at the two-stage of initial audit, you click on the, I hope it will work here. Not on this one, maybe on this one it will work. No, it doesn't work from here. But anyway, the link, okay, this is here, you can see it. Can you see it or not yet? No, you're not, but you can see it now. I hope you can. Yeah, it's there?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is how they look like, because I can't see them on my screen for some reason, but I think you can. Okay, I have to download this. This is the point. If I open this, okay, this is how it looks. Okay, this is how it looks like. Okay, role of technical experts, it's all written here. And this is very important disclaimer. This is something which is, as I said to you, that they were working for few months to develop this thing. Okay, so I can go back to the presentation. Okay, no, sorry about this. What happens here? And now it's all right. Also, I provide you the link to the zipped file, and when you receive the all these PowerPoint presentations, you will be able to download this. It's all free of charge. Okay, now another topics which are quite important for you: added value audits versus consultancy. What is audit planning? What you need to expect from the auditors with regards to audit plans? Because some of you asking why your plan is too comprehensive, or why it's too shallow or something. This is something gives indication to the auditors. To you the reasons for this. Audit reports, what you expect from the reports, how good reports have to look like. Okay, I'm not saying that this is the requirements, it's more like guidance for auditors, and you can see and expect this. As I said to you before, auditing digital processes. This is something which before we called it auditing the computer-based management system, but this is now we call it digital processes. Use of checklist, where we discuss good or bad checklist. How to deal with consultant, because in a lot of cases, some third-party auditors don't want to talk with consultants during the audit. Is it correct or not correct? How it's supposed to be addressed? Demonstrate conformity to the standard. What's required for such thing? During disruptive events, how to operate when during the things like flooding and pandemic or whatever. Effective use of 19,011. How to audit effectiveness. Evidence collection, how to collect evidence. Non-conformity, what is the best practice for documenting non-conformity, and how to document, review, and close non-conformity. This is very important thing. A lot of auditors, unfortunately, not necessarily very clearly understanding, or not only auditors, but auditees also, that to close non-conformance, you need to review it before and identify root cause analysis. This is a conduct root cause analysis. This is a very good. And the last one in this group is remote auditing. This is another issue, which is some guidance for remote auditing. Next group talking about requirements of the 9001 2015. Competence, context of organization, how to audit customer communication, how to audit customer complaints, what is customer feedback, how to audit this, design and development processes, what are auditors supposed to ask you. Why I'm giving you all this information? Because you will be able to understand what are the auditors are going to ask you during the audit. External providers, we're talking about the purchasing and also the something relevant to outsourcing. How to audit improvement, how to audit internal audits. We talk about this a little bit later today. Internal communication, measurement, traceability, monitoring and measuring resources. Organizational knowledge, something which you will see what auditors would ask you during the audit. Policy objectives and management review. This is also what we'll be talking about later today. Another interesting and the most important now, the topic, processes. We have to audit the companies using process approach, not element by element, but by using the process approach. And this is one of the most difficult part for some auditors and some certification bodies to go to this approach, process approach. How to audit resources. What means risk-based thinking? Some people believe that risk-based thinking is it's a risk assessment. Unfortunately, or it's not, or fortunately, it's not so easy as we believe. What means scope and applicability of the standard? How to audit service organization? Statutory and regulatory requirements, and one of the important points are top management. How to audit top management. There are also auditing practices group, accreditation auditing practices topics, and I wouldn't describe this to you because it's more relevant to the certification body people, because how they are treated by accreditation bodies. It's important for them to realize it, but because you are customers of CB, it's not necessarily relevant to you. Just recently, as I mentioned, EMS, it wasn't the 14,001 people created their papers. One of their papers is certification of the reliability of environmental information, auditing external providers, life cycle perspective, improvement, risk and opportunities, environmental auditors competency examples. So you can see that they're very new. It's only around 7 papers or 6 papers, but they're growing up, and compare with quality audits, you have seen it's quite considerable amount of these things. Okay, this is the generic things, and I am going to go to more specific papers. Tell me, do you have any questions regarding this presentation? I will be very happy to answer these questions before we go to the next topic. Any questions on the chat? I can't see anything on the chat. Renee, can we go ahead to the next presentation?
Yeah, no questions on the chat.
No questions, so it means that I said something wrong or right, or
I think all good so far.
okay. Now, incidentally, I want to tell you that these papers have been, I'm talking about quality, I'm not talking about environment. I don't know how they're going in this case now, how far they're going with this. I know one important issue, that these auditing practices have been translated to a lot of different languages. At least I know Portuguese, Spanish, Russian, which I was involved in this translation before the war started. When we have Chinese, of course, Korean, and French, and all the other languages, a Czech language, which I found is Some of them available on the website of certification bodies. But unfortunately, this is something which I always say, they are not very well promoted worldwide. I want to ask you if you can tell me out of how many people we have, how many of you heard about these documents? Do you have anybody, if you can tell, put in somehow indication who heard this, about these papers? No, you see, Shane is showing me that he doesn't. At least I can see him. And and this is something which is very bad from my point of view. We wrote something which from my point of view was very, very important. And for some strange reason, we know not many people were using this, okay, or using them now. Okay, if we don't have any other questions, we can go to the next presentation, policy, objectives, and management review. I don't want to split these three topics to make them separate. It's just one important topic, which is helping you to understand one of the important issue, which will bring top management to the picture of management systems. Because some people think, and another very good paper which we wrote was how to audit top management and why we need to audit top management. But you will see this one, and I hope you will be able to understand what we want to take. Okay, one of the important issue, policy objectives and management review. The quality policy and its effective deployment can only be truly assessed based on the overall results of the audit. When I was training my auditors at SIA Global, I was saying to them, it was a long time ago, of course, and I hope some of them still doing the right thing, which I found not necessarily happening. Now, they asked the question. I had one auditor who started the questions all the time. Do you understand the quality policy? Of course, very often the people said, yes, we do. You can't verify it. You can't verify that they do understand it. You don't need to do examination and ask them to repeat it. But once I was supervising one of my new auditors, training him, he asked the auditor, do you understand the quality policy? And you know what this guy in the company said? No, I don't. I don't remember this, and I don't want to know anything about your quality policy. And what the auditor have to do to write non-conformance? No, he did not. The main thing which was said after this guy was a storeman at one of the companies. He told, I don't need to know this quality policy. I need to understand my job. I have to do my job correctly. And this is how I understand the quality policy. I don't remember the words which are said there, even if it's displayed all over the company. Some of them even can't read it. So in a lot of cases, this displayment of the auditor company's policy is just for the auditors to see how nicely they are written. It's a very nice thing, but to make the decision about effective deployment and understanding and addressing the quality only after on the results of the overall results of the audit. This is something which I always fight with people when they say the quality policy was not signed and I saw it in the canteen and it looks not necessarily very nice. I thought, so what? Audit went well? Yes. Did they understand? Have they addressed all appropriate requirements? Do they know what they're doing? Yes. So what are you worrying about? That they did not make a fresh reprint of the policy to satisfy you? It doesn't add any value. The main value is to see how effective organization is. Okay, So the methods which could be used for this is interviewing top management to understand their approach and commitment to quality. Evaluating through the records of management review, the commitment and involvement of top management in the establishment, implementation, monitoring, and updating the quality policy. Assessing whether management can effectively translate the quality policy into understandable words, the guidance at all levels of the organization with corresponding objectives at each applicable process, function, and level. So by looking again at the result of the audit, you can see how effective it's implemented. And this is an important thing. Conducting interviews with persons to verify if they have the required awareness, understanding, and knowledge of the way the organization quality relates to their own activity, regardless of the term used by such people to express their understanding. So the main thing, do they know their job? Do they understand what they are doing? Do they understand what will happen if they're not doing their job correctly? Collecting evidence of effective dissemination of the quality policy to by appropriate communication. Appropriate conclusion of effective dissemination and understanding of the quality policy can only be attained at the end of the audit after evaluation of audit results. Do not ask persons to recite the quality policy. Okay, this is an important issue, and I believe this is, if auditors are asking this in the beginning, I think he or she are wasting their time. Okay, auditing quality objective. Auditors need to verify that organization overall quality objectives have been defined, reflect the quality policy, are substantially coherent, are aligned and compatible with the organization context and strategic directions, and are aligned with its overall business objectives, including customer expectations. In this case, this is not the case. The auditors could further evaluate top management committed to the quality. Yet, if this is not the case. So what is important that all objectives are well defined. They're coherent. They're compatible with organization context and strategic direction. To be honest with you, I don't like the word quality objectives. I think its most appropriate thing is business objective. And when somebody is saying to me that this is not a quality objective, this is a business objective, I thought, what's the difference between business objective and quality objective? This is very relevant and they're very well defined. Quality objectives are to be measurable and verifiable, but not necessarily quantified. One of the problems which a lot of auditors have, they do not understand the difference between qualitative and quantitative. It's a different things, of course, but standard does not ask the quality objectives to be quantifiable. It's not written there. They have to be measurable. So qualitative results may also be relevant. Answer yes or no regarding achieving objective is acceptable, providing it's supported by the evidence. For example, very small business where not many people are working. They're struggling through the hard time with recession and all the other issues. Their objectives could be very simple: stay in business. And it's acceptable. It's acceptable providing there is supporting evidence of what they are doing to satisfy these requirements, how they address the pricing, how they look at the customer requirements, customer complaints, and all the other things. This is part of their objective. There is no specified way of identifying or documenting quality objective. All this may appear through business plans, management review outputs, annual budget, and so on. It is up to auditors to satisfy themselves that the objectives are adequately documented. The auditor should obtain evidence of the way the quality objectives are suitably cascaded throughout the organization structure and processes, linked to the general strategic objectives, to management objectives, and down to specific operational objectives. So it's in a lot of cases, this not immediately evident, but good auditor will be able to understand this. It is recommended that documented information related to quality objective should be examined at the stage of the audit when the organization documented information is reviewed. So what is important that, and I got this in my organization, it was one of the tools which we're using. We ask client to tell us about regarding their objectives in the beginning of the process. Let's say it's stage 1 audit. What are your objectives? It was recorded on our files, and when every audit we see, are they updating them? What are the methods of verifying them and monitoring them? What are the new objectives and so on? So before the end of the auditor have to satisfy themselves that the quality objectives are realistic, relevant, and the organization has assigned the responsible people the resources needed to meet their objectives. Evidence of this should be obtained at all levels of the organization. So this is very important that at every level of the organization there are some objectives, and these objectives are met, and they are well they're met. Quality objectives are not static and need to be updated in the light of current business climate and the quest for improvement. Auditors should verify that the overall performance of the organization reflects the aims of the quality policy and reasonably meets the quality objectives. Auditors should also keep in mind that there is a clear link between the dynamic aspects of revising the quality objectives, and the commitment of the organization to improvement. So this is regarding quality objectives. Now we spend a little bit more time on auditing of management review. ISO 9001 requires top management to review the organization quality management system at planned intervals to ensure its continuous suitability, adequacy, and effectiveness. The review could be carried out at a separate meeting, but it's not a requirement of the standard. This is what we need to understand. Standard does not require to have once a year management review meeting. This is a wrong practice to have just one management review meeting a year. I don't know how organization can work if they wait for 1 year for the management review. This is wrongly interpreted by a lot of consultants and unfortunately a lot of auditors. I believe in case of sustainable certification, we are not doing this way. There are many ways in which top management can review the quality management system, such as receiving and reviewing a report generated by management representative or other personnel, various electronic communication as a part of regular management review of management meetings, where issues such as budget and targets are also discussed. So this is important thing. One of the aim of the standard, and specifically 9001 2015, trying to bring quality back to the business, not separate quality. This is quality issue, this is business system issue. This is not correct. The management review is a process that should be conducted and audited utilizing the process approach. Organizations need to be able to demonstrate that they have evaluated the effectiveness of actions taken to address risk and opportunity during management review. Consequently, auditors will be able to obtain objective evidence of the use of this approach. ISO 9001 specifies a number of inputs to the management review process, and these topics need to be addressed. These are not the only subject that can be included in a review. It is also acceptable not to address them individually or simultaneously, but as a part of an overall review of the business. Auditors should be aware that the inputs could be in many forms, such as reports, trend charts, and so on. This is a very important thing. And this is for the clients of a certification body. It's important to understand this. If you define your management review process as various meetings, not just one meeting, auditors have to accept this, and you will be able to demonstrate that all requirements of the standard regarding management review, regarding inputs and outputs, are addressed during these meetings. Not in a one meeting, not in the just one meeting at the end of the year, but you can show the different meetings which are happening or discussions during are happening, and this is all a part of management review. As output from management review process, there should be evidence of discussions regarding changes to the quality policy and objectives, planned and positive actions for improvement, change of resources, revise business plans, budgets. If we are not addressing budgets during review, how can you achieve something if you don't have a budget for your resources? This is an important part of the management review also. The outputs may not only be related to improvements or changes, but could also include decisions of other important issues, such as plans to introduce such new products. Documented information on management review is required. The format of this is not specified and could be minutes of the meeting, electronic records, statistical charts, even PowerPoint presentations. Once I had a company which I was consulting in, and I came to the organization, and I was invited to be a consultant there, and the general manager of this company was one of my colleagues from ISO. He was appointed as a general manager. He asked me, can you come and have a look what my quality department is doing? I told, okay. And when I came to this organization, I saw that they are preparing a big folder of documents just for one yearly review. When this folder, when I told this to my colleague who was the general manager of the company, he thought I have to reduce number of people in my quality department, because what are they doing? We don't need all this. This is complete waste of time. I want from them, just if they call it once a year management review, maybe 10, 15 slides PowerPoint presentation to give me the key points which they want to discuss. But I want to ensure that my quality director part of my team, and he's addressing the issue during all my executive meetings. And this is important, not just having department preparing all this unnecessary paperwork. The management review process might also include elements of quality management system planning, where changes to processes and system are being considered. Where this is the case, the auditor should review whether or not the following points have been considered. Will changes to the management review or business as a whole have an impact on other part of the system or business? Are proposed changes evaluated before implementation? In preparation strategic plans, are issues such as those in clause 4 contents of organization of the standard being considered? Are the controls needed identified before the outsourcing of process is begun? This is an important issue. And the management review process should not be an exercise carried out solely to satisfy the requirements of the standard and the auditors. It should be an integral part of the organization business management process. An overall management review is a complex process carried out at various levels of the organization. It will always be a two-way process generated by top management with input from all levels in the organization. These activities could vary from daily, weekly, monthly organizational unit meetings to simple discussions or reports. Auditors should look for evidence that the input and output of the management review process are relevant to the organizational size and complexity, and that they are used to improve the business, not just for the auditors to tick the box. Auditors should also consider how the organization management is structured. The management review process is used within this structure. Of course, if we're talking about a company where father, mother, and the dog, three people, two father, mother, son, and the dog, we don't need to have a big management review meeting with all the other things. They can discuss it during some sort of informal meetings. And this is important, which I want to tell you something about management review. Do you have any other questions about this issue? We have another presentation which I want to discuss with you. If you have any questions, I will be very happy to answer. I don't see any questions. Are you ready to answer questions, to ask questions, or? No. So maybe I did not say anything new for you, so you knew everything before me. Or you agree with everything I said. Usually people start arguing and debating and saying that I don't understand standard. I can tell you I have some understanding of standard. I wrote this from 1992. So something, and I done a lot of audits myself, and this is something which we were able to present was as a best practice, which I believe we had. But if you don't have questions, we'll start to go to internal audit part. Can I? If no one say no, I have to start. Okay. You can understand that I selected these parts and only because it's more important for you, because there are a lot of other topics which maybe you're not familiar with, but you are doing this quite well. So I just want to ensure that we are all on the same wavelength. Okay, so let's start with the internal audit. The organization seeks a suitable, adequate, and effective quality management system, needs to conduct internal audits to ensure that the QMS functions as intended and that it identifies weak links in the system as well as potential opportunities for improvement. The internal audit acts as a feedback mechanism for the top management. I can tell you one thing. When I see some consultants, I had some arguments with them about this, and some auditors saying internal audit is not a top management process. I can tell you that internal audits is one of the top management processes. Usually organizations, and if you look at the internal audits, the process approach, I usually recommend everybody to split all organizational processes in three parts. On the top is top management processes. In the middle is the processes which deliver the products or service. And on the bottom are support processes. In support processes, I consider training and document control and something relevant to this, maybe calibration of equipment. But in top management processes, I look at the management commitment, of course, and internal audits. I believe one of the most important tools for the management is appropriate internal audits. The internal audits, as I said already, acts as a feedback mechanism, and this is very important. It can give top management and other interested party assurance that the system meets the requirements of 9001. How the internal audit process is managed is a key factor to ensuring the effectiveness of quality management system. The clause 922 states the organization shall plan, establish, implement, and maintain an audit programs, including the frequency, methods, responsibilities, planning requirements, and reporting, which shall take into consideration the importance of the processes concerned, changes affecting the organization, and the results of the previous audits. This is a very good statement. At the same time, it's a very open standard, a very open statement, because it all depends on how you consider the importance of which processes are important in your organization. Because I remember in the long time ago, the internal audit schedules was elements of the standard on the one side, and when you do element by element. I believe it's complete waste of time, because you can try to audit your processes. If you audit your processes, you will be able to realize that what is important, what are the processes you have to do more often, because the audit schedules, audit program for the internal audits in the organization, when you do everything by clause of the standard and with the same frequency, does not give me any indication that this company understands what are they doing and how they're doing this. By applying risk-based thinking, requirement of the this requirements is intended to focus the internal audit program on those processes and areas where past history indicates that problems have occurred, or where problems are likely to be ongoing, or are likely to occur because of the nature of the processes themselves. These problems may result from issues such as human factors, process capability, measurement sensitivities, changing customer requirements, changing to the work environment, and so on. But one thing what I don't like in even my presentation, human factors. When we talk about human factors, I don't believe there are such issues as a human factor. It's a bad system. If the system is supposed to eliminate human factors as much as possible, but I can talk about this a little bit later, maybe, or another day. The processes with higher level of risk or non-conformity should have priority in the internal audit program. Special attention should be given to processes where risk is influenced by factors such as severe consequences of failure on process capability, customer dissatisfaction, non-compliance with product or process statutory and regulatory requirements. So this is very important to demonstrate to the auditor or to themselves and to the organization, and the main thing to the top management. When you set up your audit program, you are addressing the risk levels of the. I'm not talking risk assessment. I'm talking about risk-based thinking. Where you have real issues or possible problems, whatever, you have to audit this much more often. And if I see the program when everything the same, I will raise a big question mark about effectiveness of internal audit system. Coming back to the standard, internal audits are an effective tool for determining the levels of conformity of the organization management system to its selected criteria. They provide valuable information for understanding, analyzing, and improving the organizational performance. Internal audits should assess the implementation, effectiveness, and efficiency of the organization management system. This can include auditing against more than one management system standard, as well as addressing specific requirements relating to interested party, product, services, processes, or any other special issues. To be effective, internal audits should be conducted in consistent manner, which is written by competent people in accordance with the organization audit planning. I'm not going to read all this standard again, but you will be able to see this. But one of the important thing which I always recommend people read 9004, which is guidance standard, is not an auditable requirement. It does not have requirements, but give a very good very good guidance for internal audits. So it's very good standard, which unfortunately not many people are reading. And this is something, another big problem in the standardization and conformity assessment. People only read 9001, but don't worry about 9000. This is important to understand 9004. When third-party auditors examine internal audit processes, they should evaluate issues such as the competencies that are needed and for and applied for the audit. So what competent people you need? What type of competence is required? You need to look at objectivity and impartiality of the internal audit process. The risk-based thinking performed by the organization in planning internal audits. I already spoke about this before. The degrees of management involvement in the internal audit process. The guidance provided by 19011, but note that 19011, that 9001 does not require the organization to use ISO 19011. But I can tell you one of the important issue for all quality practitioners to know and apply 19011 in their practice. The way the outcome of internal audit process is used by the organization to evaluate the effectiveness of its quality management system and to identify opportunities for improvement. Evaluate the organization approach to identifying critical areas as well as other parameters. It's processes that are critical for product or service quality. It's complex processes or those that need special attention. It's processes that need to be validated. We are talking about, as we called before, maybe special processes. Not many people are using this now. It's processes, they need a personnel to be qualified. There are some organization required a certain qualification for the certain processes. It's processes, they need close monitoring of process parameters. It's monitoring and measuring activities that require frequent calibration and or verification. It's activities that and processes that occur across multiple locations and on which are labor intensive. Processes where problems have occurred and are in risk, and establish process performance indicators that define effectiveness and efficiency measures. And do these measures align with organization overall goals and objectives? Does organization uses such information when establishing the audit frequency of such processes and activities? So this is what I'm trying to tell you. These bullet points are giving a tips to you that the auditor could look at. And also when you establish your internal audit program, you consider these issues. And if I will be doing the auditing of your internal audits, I will ask myself, have you done this? Have you done this risk-based thinking? When you set up the audit program, audit plans, or audit program, in this case, audit schedule, is it done this way? Or you do exactly the same way, the same frequency for everything you are doing? This never was adding value to your organization, this approach which we had before. When you have 20 close or 10 close of the standard and 10 ticks in the end of the audit. Evaluate the competence of the organization, internal auditors and audit teams. So one thing what I tell you now, the competence requirements for internal audit is very important. But one thing what you need to understand, no one asks you to train internal auditors outside of the organization. It's entirely up to you how you train it. My recommendation will be, of course, to have at least one person to be trained, and when this person could train others. You don't need to register internal auditors. You don't have to rely on the ERCA or example or whatever they call them, auditor registration, because auditor registration, from my point of view and from a lot of other experts' point of view, it's only evidence of qualifications, but not competence. The standards now, the ISO standards are talking about personal competency, not necessary qualification. So engage auditors with appropriate training. So this training could be internal. One of the things which I always recommend people use your internal auditors to observe external auditors. When they come, you can ask them to observe and make them as a guide for external auditors. Has in place a process for monitoring and performance of these internal audits and audit teams. Include personnel of its audit teams that have appropriate sector specific knowledge so that they are able to identify where the likelihood that a deviation in a particular process or activity could lead to a significant consequences of product quality. The internal auditors are respected at all levels in the organization. Are internal auditors respected? This is one of the points which are very important. I was in one organization doing the audit, external audit, when it was obvious that internal auditors have no respect at all in the organization. I don't want to be, you can't talk about this openly. Sometimes age of people where somebody new came to the organization, they not necessarily train the person properly, and they just put this person to audit top management, and this person is not respected at all. whatever he or she is saying would not be expected accepted by the organization. So ensure that you have somebody with the appropriate, relevant knowledge and respect. In this case, the internal audit results will be effective and it will be trusted by the rest of the organization. An analysis should also be made to whether the internal auditors understand the inherent risk to the reliance that can be placed on the outcome of the audit process. If they fail to consider something which is material to the outcome of the audit, select an appropriate sampling regime, weight the evidence collected inappropriately or deviate from the auditor plan and internal audit procedures. Evaluate the planning of the audits. The organization should be able to maximize the use of available resources during the conduct of internal audit activities. This can be facilitated by the adoption of risk-based approach to the planning of internal audit. The results of this risk-based approach will enable the organization to define the audit program, the frequency, duration, and scope of internal audit, and as 9001 does not specify these criteria. You see, the duration and scope of the frequency of internal audit is not defined by the standard. It's up to you to define it. You can do it every month, you can do it every year. Even some people could demonstrate that they do it every 2 years. Nowhere in the audit it's written, in the standard it's written that have to be done once a year. So you need to demonstrate that what level of risk of the organization forces you to make it more often or less often. This should be, it should be ascertained whether the organization through its internal audit process has considered the use of risk-based approach in developing the internal audit plan and to ensure that effective and efficient use of resources. This should also ensure that the inherent risk of audit failure in the audit process and audit outcomes are minimized. The organization should have a process for utilizing past audit results in the planning of the future internal audits. Look for evidence that organization has implemented an effective internal audit program. I can give you one I will tell you a little bit later. By taking the above factors into account and by examining whether the internal audit process is leading to any tangible improvements to QMS, the third-party auditor should be able to form a judgment of whether the organization has implemented an effective internal audit program, or if the outcome on internal audits provides evidence or analysis of effective UMS. And the one thing what I want to tell you, and this is what I always have a lot of problems with some of the people, because when you look at the audit plan made by third-party auditors, in a lot of cases, they put auditing of your internal audit in the beginning of their third-party audit. This is wrong. It's good practice in third-party audits to audit internal audit processes of the organization towards the end of the third-party audit. In this case, auditors will be able to compare the results of internal audit process against their own findings and thereby be able to evaluate effectiveness of this process and the resulting corrective action. This is what's happening in a lot of cases. Internal audit was done and you have not found any problems in your internal audit. Results have showed that everything is all right. Too many ticks, everything is nice and so on. But when you go to the your internal audit, when you do internal audit, you will realize, I'm sorry, that there are too many problems. In this case, I immediately write a non-conformance against the company internal audits. I said internal audit of the company is not effective because I found the problems, you cannot find the problems. So who is responsible for this? You. You have not done good internal audits. Why external person finds something you did not find it yourself? So in this specific case, it's very important for you to identify, and this is my tip to you, identify as many problems as possible, as really you have during internal audits, apply appropriate corrective action, try to find root cause analysis, and demonstrate it. Don't hide it from external auditors. Good external auditor will not raise a non-conformance against you if you found the problem already yourself, you are addressing this and you are working on fixing this problem. But if you have everything is all right, it's a problem. You said everything ticked, everything is all right. This is why another big problem which I found is auditors are, even if they do the audit in the beginning of the audit, they are influenced by your decision. They have to be open-minded. They came to you, they think everything must be okay, they found the problems. Okay? But if they found the problems, but you did not, it's a real problem with your internal audit systems. So this is what I have time to tell to you today. I'm a little bit over time. And if you have, I hope you have any questions. But you don't have any questions. My God. So why did I do it if you understand everything? You can read it yourself. But please ask questions and see what you have. We have quite a lot of people, and I don't believe you have no questions. One thing which is important, you will receive all this, of course, PowerPoint presentation, which I'm making reference to the auditing practices papers. You'll have links to these papers. You can read them, you can use them, and I hope the auditors will also will be using this. And it's quite important for you to understand and promote these things. Actually, I saw it's going to do some promotion, even I have to write something, not to write, they tape me, they have to tell the history. The funny thing that I was convener for 13 years of this, and I had another 3 or 4 co-conveners from IAF. All these co-conveners became the chairmen of IAF after this, and I was staying with different co-conveners every time. I have to work with them for quite a long time, and we were quite happy team, and we created a very good documents, and I believe they're very helpful, and when you read them you will see that it's give you a good tips. They're accepted, funny enough, by aerospace industry. They translate it and use it in their guidance documents. Automotive industry, Quest Forum, which is doing electronics industries. Unfortunately, and this is one of the biggest problems which I consider, standards bodies in the world are very bad marketing people. They're never promoting something which they have. Because even Standards Australia, with all my respect to this organization, for whom I work for nearly 30 odd years, they're not, unfortunately, they're not necessarily promoting these documents. Okay, I have to every time talk about these Jazans, find out about these papers because I told them to find this. So this is the issues. Okay,
Sorry,
now yes.
just quickly to come in, just 5 minutes for a bit of question time. So if any of you have any questions or anything, please note obviously afterwards. Obviously this has been recorded, so we'll be sending this along with the additional resources to everyone that's today, as well as those who had registered and couldn't make it. So Yeah, we'll give 5 minutes now. I know it's coming to lunchtime, so appreciate your patience today. And
Okay, there is one question which I have from DC. I don't know who is DC is, but I think maybe Daniel, Daniel Carrasco. Yes, Daniel. I tell you one thing. The good system supposed to avoid human errors. Maybe I made a mistake saying this human factor because I don't believe the human is responsible for mistake. Is the system responsible for mistake? If you go through a lot of issues which are related to the human, it's the system force him to to make this mistake. Of course, where a lot of processes requires human input and the system is not well designed, like somebody is, if you know, there is one lean production where they're talking about something which you need to make human not involved in certain processes, like USB, you can't put from another side, but you can use, if you use a hammer, you can put it through. It will never work, but USB have to be put in the computer. I don't know if you see my USB port. Okay, this is something. But as you ask about this one, I believe good system have to eliminate human error, human factor for the error. So I don't expect human error as a root cause analysis, as a result of root cause analysis. There are a lot of issues which which influence human behavior. If the guy is not well trained, the guy is not necessary have a procedures which are not necessarily comprehensive, not user friendly. So, or the person came to work and he had a lot of problems at home. It's also influencing his human error. So it's up to organization to ensure that human errors are minimized. Okay. Thank you. Okay, this like this. Okay, good. Now, thanks for the presentation. You talk about what would you rewriting or structuring internal audit templates. I hate internal audit. I have any templates. I can tell you what I do for internal audit. I take your process map or process description or procedure if you have it. Okay. In this procedure, I make a photocopy of this. I put a margin on the side. And everywhere if procedure said do this or shall be done, I put on the margin yes or no. And this is your checklist for the procedure. You don't need to have a checklist based on the requirements of the standard. For internal audit, you need to do procedure based on your own requirements. And of course, your own requirements are translating the standard requirements. If, for example, in your procedure, you said that the gauges have to be calibrated every 2 months, let's say, you put on that side, the gauges are calibrated every 2 months. You said yes or no. Okay. But you don't have to rewrite a checklist. You have your procedure, make a photocopy, put a margin. In the margin, you say yes, no, and tick the box. And of course, audit report could be, I always recommend an audit report for internal audit to have executive summary for the top manager. Because one nice saying, which I always say to people, don't lose signal in the noise. You know, in electronics, when you look at the screen of the screen, it's too much noise, not enough signal. This is what we say. Ensure that you really identify the real problems. Okay. Don't, for top management, of course, when you talk about with auditee, you can identify minor things and they can address it. But executive summary have to identify real problems, which actually create the risk for the organization. Okay. Did I answer question, Elliot Humphreys? Yes. So the process auditing, this is what is the best thing. And I have a very good actually thing which I can see if I can show you, if you allow me with time. I can show you one slide which I believe, just a second, stay with my, no, it's not this. 1 second, sorry, I just need to go back to this one. Okay, this is what I recommend people to use. Audit the system from the system up to the standard, not from the standard down to the system. This is your system and this is standard. You start from the system up to the standard, not from the standard. Okay, this is something. And I also was showing you something to do with, no, it's every, this one maybe. Okay, this is what I was saying to you regarding the processes, top management processes, support processes, and people and realization processes. This is how I split integrated of interested parties requirements. I don't have time to go through this now, but maybe I also can show you later if we have more time, because now I think we are limited in this time. Okay, but we can do this, and if you're interested, we can discuss this later. Okay.
What we'll do is it possible, Alex? Maybe we'll send this across and include it as part of the resource package.
You will find this in the
Yeah,
auditing
brilliant.
practices papers. You can read it there, not in, because you can read everything there. So I will send you I'll send to Trusha all the slides, which 3 sets of slides, and you will be able to find it, download from the system. Okay.
Any last questions before we wrap up?
I have one question to you, not a question, but you need to ensure that our auditors are applying these practices.
Yeah.
Okay, this is my aim, because I done the similar training to Tusha, and I can tell you that sustainable certification is a very good certification body, and they're very committed to the real systems, and I'm very pleased to work with them. And I hope that the auditors are doing what I'm saying now, because I can tell you that one of my biggest problem was that I think myself is, how to say it, responsible for the nonsense which is happening with certification world. I done the first 9001 audit in 1987. Can you imagine how old I am? And can you imagine that I wrote the standards from 1992 till 2015, and I hope the next two revision I wouldn't touch, because we decided not to update it for next few years, but standard body wants more money, so they will ask for new standard soon. But anyway, so I am trying to bring back a common sense into what we are doing. And my very important aim to ensure that this certification bodies have this common sense approach and good, competent people to do the job. This is quite important for me. This is why I agreed to help them to do these things.
Brilliant, brilliant.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Alex.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for Alex for sharing such invaluable information with us today. I know that I'm sure everyone has learned a lot. I know I've learned a lot. As I mentioned, everyone, we will be sending an email in the coming days. So it'll be an automated email which will include all the complementary resources that we talked about today. And we will be sending a survey because this is, we're always looking to continually improve in the way we. So you will be receiving certainly a survey link in the coming days. Once again, I mean, I can't thank Alex enough for his time, and thank you everyone for giving up your time today. I'm sure you've learned something. So, look, I'm Tusha Nathan. It's been an absolute pleasure hosting our webinar for all of you. And until next time, and enjoy your Anzac.
Another small thing, if you have any questions at all, just send them, and I will be very happy to organize maybe something question answer session, which will be discussions in the same format or maybe in live face to face. It's up to sustainable to arrange it. I will be quite happy to help. Okay. Incidentally, I am continuing to work in QA8 committee, which runs the ISO 9000 standard, and also in QA10 SIA Global, Standards Australia committees. Nothing to do with SIA Global. Thanks God they sell them. So it's a different thing. And SIA Global is not in existence anymore. It's Intertech. Okay, so even not Australian company anymore. Okay, good luck. Have a good time. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Renee, for your help.
Thank you.
Bye.